Hi everyone, welcome back into the Academy for another video here at Chesterfield Golf Club. It's lovely to have you along for another one. My name is Warren Bennett. We've got Trev chilling out on the floor, a little bit in the way, but he's pretty chill today. We're inside the Academy, but as you can see, we're outside as well. So we're going to hit a few shots, and I'm going to give you some tips to improve your consistency quite quickly, because sometimes we haven't got the time to work on our game, and we might be playing quite soon. We might be playing in an hour, or you've just played and you've got a match tomorrow, or you've got a match in a few minutes and you haven't got the time to obviously work at it. So these exercises or these little tips I can give you, you can take on the golf course. Not too difficult to take out, but they've shown in some of my clients who I give that these produce quite good results quite quickly. Now remember, there's no substitute for practicing and grooving and making some changes to your golf swing, but there is a time and a place to let that go, play golf, find a way for you to play golf, but these little tips can help that along the way. So let me start. So people, this is kind of not necessarily for the elite golfer, but this is more for the club golfer as well, to help improve consistency. Absolute minefield, because consistency could be anything. It's a strike on the club face and there's a strike on the ground. That could be absolutely anything. Could be ball position, the way you're standing. So I can't obviously go into all of those, but I'm going to give you a few small little hints and tips that you can take out, which at the end of the day is not going to hurt your game. Even if you do them, it's not going to make you worse. Okay, let me get on with it. So people who struggle with actual movement, what I see is have too wide a stance. Now we've told, and I was told from a young golfer, that you should have a nice wide stance. It's going to give you a good base to be able to move. Now in my opinion, especially when you get to my age and plus, we're losing our mobility a little bit. So I would recommend having a smaller stance than a narrow one, because it's going to do two things. It's going to give you the ability to be able to move a little bit more freely, because remember, if I was doing the splits, and obviously that's an extreme version, my range of motion is very much neglected and I can't create the actual weight shift that I'm after. If you've got a narrow stance, or more of a narrow stance than you would, it's easier now to create this small weight shift. Because remember, if you've got a feet very narrow, you don't have to move a lot to create that weight shift. So that's number one. But remember, narrow gives you that feeling of weight shift. Plus, it stops you moving around too much, because remember back in one of the exercises we've given you in one of the videos, is feet together, which is obviously an extreme version of a narrow stance. It stops you moving around too much, stops the top half moving, because your gyroscopes in your head are telling you, I've now taken away the base that I used to have, very much smaller, so now I'm going to have to swing my arms more efficiently and move around less with my body. Because if you're one of those guys that, and we see a lot of people, one of those golfers that lose their balance at the finish, narrow your stance is going to be more difficult. You might, especially practice swings, you might feel like you're really kind of hanging on with your toes. That's a great barometer to show you that you might need to kind of lessen your body and more of your arms. So narrow feet does that. So let me show you. So that's my kind of normal stance. I'm not saying I've got a wide one, but let's just do it for effect. Nice and narrow. Going to stand here. It helps me keep my head nice and still. And it allows me just to clip it away, a little bit more natural speed, not really losing any distance there as well. And that goes on to the, I mentioned it just there, goes on to the second feeling, is keeping your head nice and still. And there's a difference here. Remember, it's not keeping it down, so you really lack the motion. It's keeping it still and keeping it level, I mean. So it's not down. You're keeping it still, but you're still keeping it level. So, like I've said on previous videos, you're allowing your body, your head to move slightly laterally, because you have to, but you're not lifting it up, and you're definitely not just keeping it down as well. So there's a little Goldilocks zone where you're just keeping everything nice and still, because remember, you're not going to be able to move around as much. So you're going to be, everything's going to probably feel a little bit shorter, which is not a bad thing if you want the consistency, but you're staying nice and level with your head and keeping everything nice and smooth. So nice and level, you're letting your arms and body just try and blend up with each other. Keeping it nice and smooth. Let me just show you that head level again. So remember, you don't want extreme down and you don't want ever obviously lifting up, but the lifting up we see with your head, sometimes your steering wheel is your sternum. If your sternum is over moved, your head's going to follow as well, but you feel it obviously with your head. So keeping nice and level, nice and light, letting everything come down through and nice and smooth. So one more with the head nice and level. Because remember, with a narrow stance, you're not going to move around anyway as much, because remember your gyroscopes are going to stop you from moving. If I over move off a narrow stance, I'm really going to feel it. I'm really going to lose my balance there. Okay, so that then goes on to the third one, is nice and smooth, everyone. So remember, rhythm and flow is the glue that holds the swing together. I'm not saying it can get you out of a sticky situation having good rhythm. And we hear it, you might have heard it plenty of times when you get people saying, when I slow down, I play better. Mechanically, what is actually happening is they're allowing their arms and club to drop more in the slot, as you can see from the behind view. Instead of someone who tries to hit it too hard, they try and hit it too hard with the wrong areas of their body, which is generally the top half. So remember, you can swing it a bit more efficiently and a bit more freely, but you're just doing it kind of nice and smooth. You're not trying to hit it too hard. You'd rather take more club to a hole, especially in kind of windier conditions. Take a bit of pace off your swing and just feel like you're just tapping it down the middle, nice and smooth. But remember, the more, you see these top pros, and obviously they're athletic and very strong and they hit it a mile, but let's even say an elite golfer, kind of really, don't they? They don't really look like they're hitting it very far, and the ball goes miles. What's actually happening is there's natural speed down here. They're allowing this club to do all the work. They're not really twisting too much. And then on the follow through, they're through. It looks like their body's working, but really down in the impact zone, which is kind of hip height to hip height, the club is now allowed to come down and through, because everything's pretty still. Obviously there is movement. There's a bit of a kick through to get the weight shift moving, but really the club and arms are doing most of the arc through. Okay, so nice and smooth. And there's going to be one final one. So a little bit narrow. Head's going to be obviously instinctively nice and still now, because I've got the narrow stance, but keep the rhythm. Especially if it's windy, folks. It's windy at the moment, and playing in the wind can really mess you up, especially if you're hitting balls into the wind a lot, because you start leaning into it and messing up your rhythm and messing up the sequence as well. Final one is finish. Now, it's a kind of chicken and egg, this one, but I might put one more in actually after. Just thought of one while I'm here. Is the finish. You're looking for the finish to be nice and long with your arms. Keep it nice and long. You can see where my finish is. I'm folding in my arms. I'm not stopping short. Okay, one more, show you. Nice and narrow, head nice and still. It's allowed to move a little bit this way. Keep the rhythm, and nice long arm swing. Allowing my arms to do all the work. No tension, nice and light. Little twist on the way back, keeping it nice and still with the head. Little twist, nice and soft, that one even more so. And the final one is kind of everything as well. It's a change of direction feeling. It's what's called waiting for it. If you ever heard the term waiting for it, what you're actually doing is allowing this arms and club to come down without moving your top half. Say that a lot in the video, especially the slicing ones. You're allowing this club and arms to drop down. Remember, it's important what I say there. You're allowing it. You're allowing it because you're just staying pretty still with everything, head as well. Everything just now swings down. So you can do this type of exercise. And back in the day, Hogan called it a free ride down. People called it the gravity drop, the vertical drop, whatever you want to call it. From the behind view, what's actually happening, you're allowing these arms to go this way, and obviously club as well. And then the out happens a little bit as well, especially if you're an over the topper, you need to feel this. So you're allowing it, remember, by keeping nice and passive, head nice and still, and there's just this change of direction. You're just allowing this club just to fall down nice and light, no pressure at all. Remember, rhythm will help that, we'll glue that together. Narrow, head, drop and release, nice and long with the arm swing. Keep everything smooth, people. One more. Remember this, I know this is a really old fashioned, I'm showing my age here, but what we used to say back in the day, Golf Monthly, Jack Nicklaus may have said it, Tom Watson may have said it, is when it's breezy, swing it easy. It's a bit corny, but quite like it. Because when it's breezy, you don't want to start getting into it too much with everything. You really don't want to try and get into it too much. Very easy when the wind's into, and you're trying to lean into this wind here. But you want to stay as nice still. So I'd say in order of importance, I would go feet narrow. Because if your feet are narrow, your head probably won't move around, your body won't move around. I'd say rhythm and long arm swing. Long arm swing meaning you want your arms up here. You don't want them stopping short. So let's just go for those three. In order of importance, feet nice and narrow. Okay, rhythm and long arms. Well, it's gone a little bit shorter than normal. I'll tell you what, not far away. Okay, so any questions, let me know. Love to hear from you. It's all about repetition, and it's all about trying to improve, obviously, this when we practice to when we play. And these little tips and these little feelings, and trust me, the pros will have this type of thing. I'm not saying it will be probably as simplistic as this, but they will have feelings and little anchors to go to. So nice and smooth, nice and small with the stance. Don't be afraid to change it. If it's not going well on the golf course, just bring everything back to kind of neutral, nice and relaxed, and just let the club and arms do all the work. And I hope it helps. If it does, please let me know. If you've got any questions about it, please comment below, and I'd love to hear from you. So from myself and Trev, who has got half his body hanging out of the academy at the moment, I'll see you on the next one. Have a good golfing week, everyone. Cheerio.